Alright, time for some more illogic. Last time we went over the Buffalo Bouffalant's Wooper Club League Season 10 low-tier draft. Please go check out that video first if you have not done so already. So we went over the team from top to bottom, starting with our third overall pick, Aerodactyl, and also covering Tentacruel, Steelix, Mesprit, Pessimian, Rotom Frost, Frostlass, Guzzlord, Clawitzer, Marowak, and Clang. Hopefully a solid squad top to bottom. This time we're going up against Matt and his Cincinnati Incineroar. Timestamps will be in the description. Matt and I have a storied history in the league, from allowing me to discover my Season 3 championship VGC team to defeating him in the Season 4 finals, which is documented on this very channel, a clutch win thanks to Scarf Seismitoad and his Flash Fire Ninetales. Then he was a get-right game in both Season 6 and 8 as our last opponent of each regular season, resulting in a 6-0 beatdown at the hand of Dragapult & Co., and then a 5-0 victory to Nidoking and his substitute Toxic Spikes set. Matt is, however, a co-commissioner of the league, and obviously very skilled, so we'll be sure to be at our best. I like his squad overall this time. At the start, it'll be with Jolteon there, 130 speed, then Espeon, first round selection Durant, Entei, former Bouffalant, Cramorant, Drifblim, Hitmonchan, Bouffalant, Staple, Tangela, Regirock, Wigglytuff, and Quagsire. I like to start off these videos by going over the opponent's team first to see what we're dealing with. To that end, we started with arranging them in speed order to get a visual representation for what we're looking at in terms of speed tiers and who has the advantage there. Well, it's pretty awkward actually this time, considering that my top 3 speed mons all speed tie with something on his side, plus he has that Durant in there too. Max speed from Aerodactyl, Frostlass, or Tentacruel could simply result in a speed tie, and his lower tier mons have just a bit more speed than mine. For example, Marowak would need to invest a good bit to outspeed Regirock, or Clawitzer a good bit to outspeed Tangela. Overall, he's got a great team top to bottom with lots of different roles and niches filled, but not all of them. For example, Hazard Control is pretty good between Magic Bounce, Espeon, Rapid Spin, Hitmonchan, and a couple defog options, but the only hazard setters are Regirock and Wigglytuff, who aren't exactly top tier picks. The speed is overall a bit ahead of mine, and the overall bulk and power is unquestioned, but the only pivoting comes from Volt Switch Jolteon and then a bunch of Baton Passers and a Teleport Wigglytuff. My water types could struggle mightily between Quagsire and Tangela, and passive mons can be broken apart with ease, but Dark and Ground attacks annihilate most of his team, and his passive mons can be broken easily too, with only 2 toxic immunities and just about everything dreading those statuses. With that said, next we're going to go over my expectations for what Matt will leave behind and what he will bring. Doing this can narrow down my focus a little bit, showing what I need to bring and prep for more seriously than otherwise. For example, even though Hitmonchan has rapid spin support plus a decent speed after the boost, I do not think it will come. Low physical bulk plus getting destroyed by Aerodactyl, Frostlass, and Mesprit, plus risking Scalds from Tentacruel, Volt Switches from Rotom, and still getting destroyed by Marowak makes for a bad time for his plain fighting type. Drifblim is a bit of a mystery for me. I don't really understand what it does. Unburden, maybe? Calm Mind? Either way, it's a poor time for it, even with Ghost being decent stab. It's weak and pretty fragile, though I suppose it can wear down my physical attackers with things like Will-O-Wisp and Strength Zap, but I'm already building around breaking physical walls, so I'm not the most concerned. Cramorant actually doesn't have the worst matchup, but is ultimately still Cramorant. Easy electric coverage from Rotom, Rock from Aerodactyl, and Tentacruel walling it quite well make me wonder if Cramorant can cut it. Man, even Cram has a decent matchup. It's really tough to narrow down what he should or should not bring from here. Would he really not bring any of his hazard removal to a matchup against 6 possible hazard setters? I wonder. But the rest of the team looks so valuable to him, I'm just not sure. I'll go Wigglytuff as the next to stay home. It does decently against Guzzlord and Frostlass, and depending on investment could potentially be a bulky Wish Passer, but I'm not sold that there are enough things on his team that he can safely pass to that can continue to be threatening. I'm going to pass on that. Finally, oh, this is tough. I think I'll say Regirock stays behind. Its physical bulk is frightening to be sure. Even Adamant Thick Club Marowak only does about 2/3 with Bone Meringue. But as said, I've already begun game planning around breaking that physical bulk, and Regirock still gets stopped by things like Steelix or that Marowak, plus the damage from Tentacruel and Clawitzer, among others, should worry him. So I'll say that. But man, those are his 2 hazard setters. Do I really think he'd leave behind his spinner, his 2 defoggers, and his 2 hazard setters? That seems not very smart, right? Maybe Drifblim works his way in as a defogger, or maybe a bulky Cram, but if they don't, I like the odds on these 6. Tangela doesn't actually have that great of a matchup, but is well known that Tangela is my favorite Pokemon, and that I've used it pretty well overall, including a first round selection back in Season 6. I've got pretty good answers, but if I don't one-shot it, Tangela is liable to click Sleep Powder, Giga Drain, Leech Seed, and many other annoying things. Plus, it'll be a little tough to wear down with Regenerator. I also don't have a grass type of my own this season, so absorbing those moves is not going to be easy. Jolteon does have 2 immunities from me, but he has a lot of answers to my ground types regardless, meaning Jolteon may make a solid core, with his Tangela especially. Both of my tier 100s are weak to electric, and I don't have the most bulk to take repeated electric hits either, meaning I may just be forced to bring a ground type just to deal with the speedy electric type that could still fire Specs Shadow Balls into me if I'm not careful. I'm definitely more confident in these top 4 coming though. Espeon is really scary, as Psychic doesn't have too many resistances from me. Guzzlord notably is hit by Dazzling Gleam, and the speed stat is frighteningly good too, forcing a speed tie with Frostlass if I were to bring it. Espeon is not only liable to wear down my team or take advantage of one that is worn down, but it also brings Magic Bounce to reflect hazards back at me, a great answer to things like Tentacruel, among others. Durant was Matt's first round selection at 80 points, and boy does this thing hurt. Hustle makes it more likely to miss, but when it hits, it is impossible to wall. First Impression in particular smacks anything hard, and when backed up by things like Iron Head and Stomping Tantrum, we are in for a bad time. Add in physical bulk, a steel typing, and more speed than 9 of my mons, and we've got a premier offensive threat. The offensive complement to it is Entei, another physical attacker, but one that can go mixed or special, with strong fire moves to cover what Durant cannot. Banded Sacred Fire does so much damage, as does Extreme Speed, or Specs Eruption could put in the work, plus other coverage like Ground, lots more bulk, more than you could imagine honestly. Entei is a solid tier 100 pick, with the stats of a legendary and the ability to flex them on lower tiers. Finally, Matt not only got my favorite mon, but also my second favorite. For the second straight season, I do not have a grass type here though this time to hit Quagsire with stab moves, so my options to hit Quaggy are much more limited. Grass coverage from other non-stab sources, Toxic, Taunt, these can all be telegraphed pretty easily and could lead him to scouting for those things early, especially after we OK'd Quagsire turn 1 with Grass Knot when he had it in Season 8. We don't have Zeraora again for it, but we've got actually quite a few options. Similar to Matt, I think most, if not all of our team has merit against him. I will be leaving behind Clang, despite the ability to check Espeon and potentially Durant and pivot out, plus sit in front of things like Tangela or Quagsire firing off Toxics. Entei is the big one for me. I do not like the idea of giving Entei the chance to fire off fire moves for free, nor do I like the chance of getting hit with a substitute, as I'm just sitting in front of it with a Clang. I think in a different matchup, Clang will have a place, but it is not here. Frostlass is actually very interesting, with Spikes hitting most of his team and outspeeding almost all of it too, but that ghost typing doesn't actually help all that much, nor does the lack of power. Not bringing Frostlass removes the awkward Espeon, Magic Bounce, Speed Tie interactions, Entei freely clicking moves, Durant clicking moves, Quagsire sitting in front of me forever, Regirock doing as it pleases. Frostlass just doesn't do enough for me. Guzzlord struggles a bit too. As said before, Espeon gets Dazzling Gleam, meaning my best individual matchup isn't an immunity for me. Resisting Jolteon and Entei in particular is very nice, but Guzzlord doesn't stop the Volt Switch. It doesn't have the bulk for repeated Entei hits, when I could potentially grab another switch in or two to Entei, or just outspeed it. I seriously considered Marowak here. Even as a tier 20, it does so much damage to the team. It needs to avoid getting burned by Entei, but 2 it KOs even physically defensive Quagsire and Regirock, while dropping most everything else, and with very free knockoffs that are amazing against Matt's team. However, like with Guzzlord, those knockoffs can be neutered due to the one-dimensional gameplay Marowak has, Tangela outspeeding and threatening the OHKO among other things. If Marowak could force better trades, great. However, considering the overall physical bulk of Matt's team, I actually have a better nuke for him. Finally, I had Rotom Frost on most early iterations of the team, but ultimately decided to leave it behind. I realized more and more how problematic those top 4 mons are, and all of them outspeed Rotom or are immune to Volt Switch. Rotom doesn't have a chance to stay in and boost with Nasty Plot, nor a chance to spam Volt Switch with 2 likely to come immunities, so Scarf didn't seem the best option either. That left me kinda stuck with what to do, so I ended up cutting it this week. So here's the first team we're going to be bringing to the low tier season. Kinda boring, the top 5 mons plus a 40, but I saw quite a few problems that I think will require these 6 to solve. Aerodactyl obviously solves plenty of problems, outspeeding all but Jolteon and +1 mons, and even then we've got that little bit of speed of Jolteon as the same idea of outspeeding the base 110 mon on our side, that is, we are speed creeping a speed creeping Jolteon. This does let us run Adamant, and after Dragon Dance you know we're ready to go to town, once again then outspeeding all of those +1 mons. Quagsire and Regirock are the big stops to the set, as well as strong priority to pick us off, like, say, a strong first impression, but that's why we're packing Toxic. Yes, if we can get the boy in early, we may have a shot to fire off a Toxic into a Quagsire or Regirock wandering their way in on what should be a great matchup for them. I need to wear them down immediately, Quagsire in particular. To that end, it may seem strange to go for a setup against it, but Quagsire can only carry one of Unaware or Water Absorb. He's got a pretty good case to go for either one. If he's Unaware, I've got a lot more spam ability with Clawitzer in particular, and if he's Water Absorb, 2 +1 dual Wing Baits should be doing north of 75%, so just a little bit of chip could go a long way. Additionally, that Lumberry on me should help the overall matchup against things like Scald Burns, as well as random Thunder Waves coming off from, plus some powder moves from Tangela, like Sleep Powder, plus a potential Will-O-Wisp from Drifblim, or Sacred Fire Burns from Entei. things like that. I like this set overall. Dragon Dance already showing how useful it can be to outspeed even Scarfers after a single boost. We'll see if we can find the right time to set up, though those opportunities may be tough given his team. The other tier 100 is of course Tentacruel, and I'm definitely excited to be able to bring Liquid Ooze this week with an actual purpose. Tangela and Drifblim do not have the best of matchups, but they do have Leech Seed and Strength Sap respectively, and I know they do not want to take that extra chip for free. It's really funny, that's for sure, but of course the main purpose here is as a physical wall. Jolteon and Espeon have the stab moves for me on the special side, so we'll need to be careful there, but on the physical side we've got a nice advantage in resisting both of Durant's stab moves while 2-hit KOing most of the time with Scald, plus the burn chance. I really don't have Durant switch in, so if I can get that U-turn off on it, switching in or something, Tentacruel is a decent option for it, stomping Tantrum aside. Otherwise, you can sit in front of most things. I see Entei as another excellent target for it, though once again, that can have stomping Tantrum, but we can sit there and fire off a fat Toxic onto, say, Quagsire, or potentially Scald the Durant, or Sludge Wave the Tangela, that this definitely is here for first and foremost. Or, of course, the ever-wonderful Knockoff. Eviolite, Life Orb, Choice Scarf, whatever. Items are crucial in a format like this where the Pokemon are weaker, but the items remain the same, so I want to remove those items as much as I can. Rapid Spin was very tempting, for sure, but I ultimately passed as Matt only has 2 Rockers, and as long as I play safely with my own Rocks around Espeon, I don't think there should be an issue there, though it is one of the reasons why I went with Toxic over Toxic Spikes. That's Tentacruel, fat, sitting in front of things and firing off those annoying conditions like Toxic Burn or losing your item. Next is probably my best answer to Durant overall in the fully physically defensive Steelix with Body Press, which will do more damage than you're expecting. Even Adamant Life Orb Superpower from Durant struggles to do a KO, and I wouldn't recommend lowering your defense against a Body Press, which can pick up 2 KOs on surprising targets like Espeon and Cramorant if they don't invest in bulk. Earthquake is my other option to hit consistently, especially get the consistent KO on Jolteon and make sure that Entei doesn't want to switch in so easily, followed by my third Toxic user in a row here for that Quagsire that wants to come in and use a super effective stab move on me. Stealth Rock is something I'll have to be a little careful with considering Magic Bounce Espeon exists and I'm not packing Rapid Spin, but it should be fine if Matt lets Espeon go down early or I can threaten it for half its health every time it comes in. Rocks could be very important in chipping down something like Durant or Entei, but doesn't seem like it's the best. But still, I want to fit them in somewhere, just in case. I did think about Fire Fang on here for Durant, as well as on Aerodactyl, actually, or maybe Sheer Force Iron Head to actually hit Drifblim, but I don't think I'm too worried about Body Press's damage into Durant or Drifblim at all to change it up. Steelix's typing just looks so good here, aside from, say, Entei and maybe Quagsire. Ideally, we can tank hits from a couple different mons as it goes in and claims some lives. We've got one more defensive Toxic piece to cover, but this also transitions us into the pivoting part of the team. Mesprit fit onto this team in a weird way here, providing pure utility and really not much else. Leftovers and lots of special defense should help me tank Espeon hits as well as Jolteon hits, as I only have Steelix as an immunity or even resist to Espeon, and otherwise have 3 electric weaknesses on the squad. Plus it's a nice special defensive complement to Steelix's physical bulk. Toxic and Protect is of course a classic combo, but the 4th Toxic user is the first one dedicated to the strat. Protect not only adds Toxic turns, but it can scout moves once we see a choice item, and also importantly may stop something like a First Impression coming in from Durant. Odds are decent that First Impression is the only bug move Durant will be packing, so stopping the only super effective move coming in could be crucial. Imagine Durant swapping in on a knockoff, getting the First Impression nullified, then I tank a hit from, say, Iron Head before pivoting on out into a better answer. That's kind of the idea of the set, not necessarily just against Durant, but continue to remove items safely and slap Toxic onto walls to wear them down, putting everything in range of, say, a late-game Aerodactyl. I considered Fire Punch for Durant and Energy Ball for Quagsire, but I think we need all 4 moves on here for the broader matchup. Let's get back to some offense then, shall we? Scarf on Passimian is probably well telegraphed, but it's totally worth adding it to the team. This slot was originally Rotom Frost as I flip-flopped on a choice item on Clawitzer and struggled to figure out what to do with Rotom until I realized Passimian just did everything I wanted from those slots. I do unfortunately need Jolly to outspeed max speed Jolteon with the Scarf, important again because we're bringing few Jolteon resists or immunities, but close combat still hits just about everything hard. Similar to Body Press, close combat is super spammable, 2-hit killing even uninvested Espeon and Cramorant among others, while U-turn provides incredibly safe pivoting against low health targets. We've got yet another knockoff user, another very spammable option, while Rock Slide hits several members I don't have covered too well, such as Cram or Entei. You may be surprised by the damage this guy does though too, with 120 attack and a 120 stab move, but you also may be surprised by its tankiness, 100 base HP with just a little bit of investment, and 90 base defense is nothing to shake a stick at. We're tanking all of Durant's hits surprisingly well, including resisting the First Impression and being hit neutrally by all his common coverage options, and this is one of the biggest reasons why I decided on Passimian in this slot. Passimian claims KO is easier than probably every other team member here too, even if I'm foregoing the Seed Bomb coverage for Quagsire due to 4 Toxic users and 3 knockoff users and 3 pivoters, hopefully playing around that just a little bit better. I suppose we should move on to the most fun piece then, yeah? We've got Clawitzer coming week 1 with an Assault Vest on it because it just seemed like a natural fit and could potentially help Clawitzer survive a hit otherwise it should not. Water Pulse is amazing in the matchup, nailing everything it hits pretty much neutrally or better for just too much damage, with Dark Pulse is a natural complement to hit Espeon in particular, while also giving a shot at 2-KOing full physical defense, which I'm expecting, Quagsire, becoming guaranteed if we can remove his item and or slap a status on it. The Water Pulse could also 2-KO if he is unaware. Yeah, we're 2-KOing essentially everything with those 2 moves, meaning we have a little bit of freedom at the end. Dragon Pulse is okay for being slightly stronger than Dark Pulse, but if the knockoffs are any indication, I think Dark's a pretty free typing, so I opted for U-Turn as a way to get out of anticipated switches, including onto Water Absorb Quagsire, and I slapped Aqua Jet there as a last-ditch, kind of weak priority option that could still pick up a last 10% or whatever on something. Straightforward and easy team, but the positioning battle should be pretty interesting overall, so let's see if the squad and I have what it takes. No Espeon, wow, no Tangela. That's not entirely unexpected, but a bit sad to see. Instead are Wigglytuff and Hitmonchan. Definitely unexpected there, but not too terrible. It does mean he actually has interactive hazard play with a Rock Setter and Spinner respectively rather than a Magic Bounce user, but their overall usefulness sure seems less than what I would be scared of, so that's totally fine by me. I actually thought Mesprit would be the lead for quite a while up until the match, but let's take a closer look. Espeon being gone makes Tentacruel better and Mesprit less useful, as well as Steelix and Passimian, while Tangela being gone reduces the value of Tentacruel and Knockoff in general. Wigglytuff means I actually have to play around rocks and potentially Wish Passing, while Hitmonchan makes Steelix more risky but increases Mesprit's value along with Tentacruel. It kind of evens out, honestly, but the 2 things that jump out to me as Matt's possible leads are Jolteon for the fast Volt Switch, or Wigglytuff to set up rocks. I'm usually real bad at this lead thing, but if those are the 2 possible leads and Espeon is suspiciously missing, I think that means I should lead with my own rocks, even if he has a Spinner. Well, he may be worried about spin on my own Tentacruel, so that should probably be fine, right? Let's go Steelix. Good luck, have fun to Matt. And he does indeed lead the Wigglytuff and frisks my leftovers. I wonder how worried he is about Iron Head. I think that either way, I need to be setting up rocks, because I think I can put up more pressure against his Hitmonchan than he can afford. And I think that's going to turn out to be the correct play, as he does indeed end up being worried about Iron Head, as evidenced by the turn 1 Wish, while my rocks go up. And I know slamming into Wiggly with my strongest move, Body Press, won't do much, considering it'll just get healed up again, so I'd much rather lay down the Toxic onto it, as Wiggly does just get its rocks up too, and it's an even trade, but I got the Toxic off on him due to his worry about the type matchup. From here, though, I am very unsure as to what Wigglytuff wants to do. No matter what it is, though, something becomes clear, and that is that there are 0 switch-ins to fighting moves. Looks like that Passimian move was a pretty good idea, even if it's still possible for a healthy amount of HP and potentially defensive investment in some of his team. Body Press is pretty free, though my initial fear is going to be proven true here, as we see the pitiful amount of damage into Wigglytuff, 32. That implies full physical defense investment, and it's going to teleport right on out into Hitmonchan, one unexpected bring into another. So it looks like we have a couple of options here, and I have to anticipate if he plans on spitting or clicking a fighting move. I have a couple of good checks to Hitmonchan, though its bulkiness could actually be a little bit of a problem if it's got an Assault Vest, as it breaks down the team a little bit with the help of rocks. Ultimately, though, I decided, even though Rapid Spin is more likely, I think Steelix's value to the team overall is way too high, and decided that I need to switch. Steelix is my only immunity to those Volt Switches from Jolteon. Just keeping it around should dissuade its use tremendously. With full physical defense, it's about the best answer I've got to at least chip Durant down for Aerodactyl, if not outright take it out. Plus, those fighting moves are looking so free. While Mesprit is dedicated to getting some good Toxic chip onto something, it also seemed to me to be the most expendable member. So even if we end up trading a little bit, I think it would be in my favor to trade Mesprit rather than anything else. Switch Focus Punch. Well, I'm going to resist that, but 56%, that is crazy. That is so much damage, and a calc will tell me that this is Adamant Choice Band on the Hitmonchan. Wow, he definitely brought a set much flashier than what I've got, but we should be able to take advantage of this at least a little bit. Man, I wish I had Body Press there now, but I think this was the right move. Crazy bring, man, crazy. So either he has to go for the Focus Punch again with the Choice Band, or swap out. this is the best chance I think I'm going to have to click knockoff, I believe, especially because of how likely he is to switch out. My play is going to be heavily rewarded with the switch out into Jolteon. Even uninvested, knockoff does almost half to the Jolteon, who did not take any chip from the rocks because of the boots I just got rid of. That should discourage some switching shenanigans at least, and should make it a little bit more predictable. Protect is slightly riskier, as Jolteon could definitely be looking to pass off a substitute, but depending on calcs, I really wanted that extra leftovers recovery, so you can see me going back up to 50%. Of course, once I removed the item from my calcs, because I literally just knocked it off, my decision the next turn was much easier. With max special defense investment, Mesprit wasn't going to be as useful thanks to the lack of Espeon, but with Jolteon here in the leftovers recovery, I should be able to tank this incoming Shadow Ball with 15% left, enough to swap in onto the rocks yet again, and after a little deliberation, go into the easiest U-turn of my life in Passimian. U-turn was super free there before, and it's going to be super free here again. And with Jolteon staying in against my Choice Scarf Passimian, U-turn and King Julian are able to claim the first KO of Season 10 into potentially his fastest threat. Very nice to see. And once that goes down, I decided to drop in Tentacruel here, as it both threatens Rapid Spin, even if I don't have it, meaning I can get a more offensive piece potentially baited in, and recover a little bit of the rocks damage here with Black Sludge. Even without actually carrying Rapid Spin, we are going to be rewarded, as the offensive piece comes in. It is the Durant. And according to my calcs, it would have to be Adamant and have a boosting item in order to KO with the Stomping Tantrum here. Yes, Tentacruel does look super valuable in the matchup, beating maybe 3 of his remaining team members in a one-on-one. In particular, that Entei and that Hitmonchan look pretty nice to be able to beat, as well as Toxicking the Quagsire. But this Durant is so scary. Seriously, the damage output with Hustle is crazy. I need to get Chip onto this thing fast. My somewhat aggressive play here is going to be rewarded as he sets up with Hone Claws, raising the attack stat to dummy heights and reducing the loss of accuracy while I get off a Scald with no burn. That would have made things pretty easy, but this now is another critical turn. Durant is now in range of being revenged by Passimian or Aerodactyl. That's so incredibly good. That last turn was amazing. But Tentacruel is at risk again, maybe even more so now that Stomping Tantrum should definitely be KOing pretty much no matter what he's got. He's kind of forced to attack too, because another Scald obviously will just take him out. So actually, maybe my ground immunity would be a good play. Arrow could come in for free if he tantrums, then KO back with Stone Edge. If I hit. Passimian could take a hit and KO back. I don't think I want either of those two damaged. I don't know if it's worth the risk on either of those. On the other hand, Steelix is my other possible Durant check and threatens to KO back. I could actually take maybe 2 more Stomping Tantrums too. Between Tentacruel and Steelix, I think Tentacruel actually has more use, even if Hitmonchan is around to force Steelix to lay down more rocks. The band set may actually be less scary in a sense. I'm going to switch. And from Durant is actually going to come an Iron Head. Well, good thing I didn't go into Aerodactyl, huh? He was very prepared for Arrow. I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of Bullet Punch calcs from Hitmonchan. Anyways, I think even if we take 50% plus on the next turn from Durant, Body Press from Steelix will claim the second KO of the match against the Bug, as Matt later revealed to have an Expert Belt on Durant to ensure the X-Scissor KO onto Guzzlord at +1, as well as boost attacks onto most everything else we had, including Arrow and Mesprit. Crazy strong to do that much to a full physical defense Steelix. But we're going to move right along as he brings in one of the bigger threats to Steelix in Hitmonchan. That Focus Punch we saw before is kind of scary, actually. So now what? Actually, if I had to pick one Mon for Steelix to face off against before going down, it's probably Hitmonchan. I think it's time to abuse that band, either sack Steelix to something like close combat, or take advantage of the Rapid Spin. There it is. Body Press actually does crazy high damage back to 72%, 67%, excuse me. You're down to below a quarter. You should have gone for the head. Now, because we know he's got a band, he is locked into Rapid Spin. Is it more likely he sacks this to Steelix while spinning? Or it's more likely he switches, right? Then let's get those rocks back down. Not sure how much that will matter, but it could, as Entei will now get to swap in at full health and avoid the rocks or get any hits at all as I get the rocks up now. Okay. This time for sure I've got to stack Steelix, right? Entei at full health is surprisingly bulky, and I cannot mess around and give it time to set up only for it to take down multiple team members and let him get back in the game, right? This is his chance to get back in. It's this Entei. Earthquake seems easy, but I'm a little nervous about that. You know what would really suck? Shucka Berry keeping it out of range, maybe getting a substitute up as a Shucka means that I fail to break the sub, or even worse, Weakness Palsy. Added maybe Extreme Speed? Oh, yeah, no. Body press is safe, consistent damage that is much less likely to be punished, so even though I should go down, I'm going to click body press. Agility. Yet another setup mon. We've definitely seen who's playing around me, switching around a lot. Luckily, the only times I've used U-turn this match were proper. I wasn't just clicking buttons just to click buttons. Those U-turns were 100% free and had purpose, rather than giving him free turns. My patience, especially with Steelix, is rewarded as body press chunks 40% from the legendary dog, cat, gerbil, whatever it is. Now for sure he will not let me live, as he is finally going to take me down, revealing the Life Orb Sacred Fire to take down Solid Snake and get on the board. We're going to take a moment to look at the game state here. We are up 5-4 with Mesprit and Hitmonchan dangerously low on each side, but his Wigglytuff is also toxic and down to about half after rocks. We're in a great spot. I think it's about time for the start of the show to make an appearance. Clawitzer is out. I know I can take a hit relatively easily here, especially a fire move. I'm curious to see what his coverage option of choice would be, considering that with things chipped as they are, Dark Pulse should take care of any potential switches. Crunch is going to come off to 40%, actually quite a bit, but what I expect from a Life Orb move from a Legendary, but Clawitzer proves that the 40% from his Dark move is more important than the 40% taken from Entei, and that's going to give us a 5-3 lead with Clawitzer in the driver's seat. Next should be the Quagsire. No, it's not. It's the 16% Hitmonchan. Well, now, that's interesting for a couple reasons. We've disposed of just about all of Matt's offense, meaning Clawitzer should be able to clean up the slow, bulky pieces somewhat easily, but Quagsire not coming in could be a sign of a lack of water absorb, especially considering my Aerodactyl has not yet made an appearance yet either. It means it could be saved as a specific Aerodactyl check with Unaware. That's not here or there right now. For now, we're talking about Hitmonchan and the sacrifice that Steelix left behind paying dividends. 3 rounds of Rock Chip and the body press bring it this low. And a quick calc at this time shows that body press damage was more relevant than expected too. I don't see any bulk on this Hitmonchan, meaning I may not need to sack off Mesprit here quite yet. I was a bit concerned about that anyways, considering the possibility of a spin, but I think I have another option now too. I know it seems odd to have a minus speed nature on the Clawitzer and put 2 physical attacks on it, and this move in particular was just thrown on there at the end because there may or may not be a chance for it to come up, but it definitely is relevant in this moment. Keeping the attack stat neutral, and the priority on Stab Aqua Jet should do a minimum of 17% to 0 HP Hitmonchan, and yes, that is what it is. Aqua Jet takes care of Hitmonchan. Excellent. Not bad. I know it could have definitely bluffed a Specs or a Scarf on Clawitzer with no item shown, which could have led to the decision to bring in Hitmonchan, but I was not locked in, and instead grab another free KO for Clawitzer, the new KO leader. Quagsire is going to come in next, and once again, I have to wonder if it's actually Unaware or Water Absorb. No reason if I don't, honestly. After that single round of chip, Dark Pulse should still 2-hit KO, or at least come close with a flinch chance to boot, and we won't actually need to find out, as Clawitzer does a little bit over half, making a potential roll, but Quagsire is going to miss the Toxic, which it could have tried to use to stall me out a bit. We've got the ensuing switch into Wigglytuff, who takes more than half to if it's remaining health after rocks left over in Toxic, and that will seal the deal for me. Another Dark Pulse is going to come out just to take down the Wigglytuff, and Quagsire after the second round of Rocks chip, and without having much in the way of recovery here, we'll go down to another Dark Pulse, and that will net us the very solid 5-0 victory to start the season. GG to Matt and the Incineroar, but my aggressive gameplay ended up paying dividends in the end. Let's break it down a little bit. So the first thing that stands out, to me at least, is that Aerodactyl never actually entered the field of play. Despite that, look at the impact it had on the match. It forced Unaware Quagsire to sit in the back all match. It forced prep such as Agility Entei and full physical defense Wigglytuff, and caused plays such as Iron Head from Durant to be used, all of which ended up being not particularly helpful to my opponent in the long run. Didn't enter the match, but its presence was felt. Matt actually shared afterwards that Guzzlord was a big issue for him in prep too, which caused the Hitmonchan and Wigglytuff to come and inspired the Durant set he was running as well, showing the devastation caused by prepping for the wrong threats. Not just that those threats were wrong to prep for, just that they were wrong because they didn't show up. Sometimes the biggest threats don't come, as shown by Espeon, for example, and it makes me glad I still packed rocks on Steelix despite that. Steelix, despite being outshown in KOs, is probably my pick for MVP, and unexpectedly so. Set up rocks twice, got the chip on Wigglytuff for Clawitzer to finish it off safely. Same with Hitmonchan, who should beat Steelix, and many times had to swap in on those rocks. Each time was critical to getting it as low as it was. It tanked a super effective hit from Durant to KO it. It forced Hitmonchan to spin to get Entei in safely, and even chunked that Entei into range of that Dark Pulse from Clawitzer. And even if it weren't Life Orb, it would then be in range of Water Pulse. Seriously, Steelix did everything, touched every single aspect of this game pretty much, in a match where I admittedly brought it sort of begrudgingly due to the Jolteon threat. I was excited to draft it, a little disheartened after prepping with it, and then ecstatic after the week 1 performance. A great nod to its power to just turn off some specific threats. Tentacruel, Mesprit, and Passimian all had minimal roles, hitting Durant and Jolteon together, but were crucial pivot pieces at their points in the game, which was early game and important in getting the momentum in my favor. Tentacruel was my safe neutral switch-in, Mesprit tanked multiple hits and switched out safely while chunking Jolteon, and Scarf on Passimian made me feel very safe, one of the big reasons I felt comfortable staying in and getting the chip I did with Tentacruel and Steelix, very crucial roles. Finally, that Clawitzer really coming in the end to clean up once the faster threats were taken care of. Just a perfect job done by basically the entire team. For the second season in a row on this channel, we got a lower tier water type to grab 4 KOs in week 1 with only, and so just big shout out to Clawitzer following up on the performance with Arctozolt. That's awesome. That will wrap it up for week 1. We're off to a 1-0 start yet again. The only times I have not won my Week 1 matches now are the Wooper Club League VGC Seasons 3 and 5, as well as my first ever Draft League battle. Those remain my only Week 1 losses to date. Week 2, though, has not been so kind to your Bouffalant, who next take on John and the Close Combat Club to see if we can avenge our Season 8 Week 2 loss to the very same coach. We'll see you then.